right, it is time to round up one of our big stories of the week, and we're talking about the death penalty in this half hour. Some of the drugs used in a botched execution earlier last week leaked from an IV, and it wasn't noticed until 20 minutes after the execution started. Death row inmate Clayton Lockett started convulsing and tried to raise his head after being administered the first of 3 execution drugs. He died of a heart attack 45 minutes later. Prison officials say the chemicals never properly made it into his bloodstream, and medical staff tried for nearly an hour to find a vein in Lockett before inserting an IV into his groin. Oklahoma's governor then issued a 2-week stay of execution for another inmate who was set to die in the same death chamber 2 hours after Lockett. Oklahoma's state prisons chief released the information in a report urging changes to the state's execution procedures. So does this prove the death penalty violates the 8th Amendment? Well, that's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you. As always, you can leave a comment on our Fox 26 Facebook page, or you can send me a tweet at Sally Mack, Fox 26. So joining us in our newsroom again, we have our legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. All right, Chris, you're the legal expert. So does this violate the 8th Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment?
Well, the Supreme Court's going to have to come back around and weigh in on that, but let's talk about the 8th Amendment, which says that, well, the graphic was coming up, that says that you cannot impose cruel and unusual punishment on people. There it is right there. And cruel and unusual punishment shall not be inflicted. And what that typically has meant was we're not going to bleed people, we're not going to force them to suffer. And putting part of a drug in someone for an execution, then watching him die for 45 minutes, others would claim that that is a cruel and unusual punishment. The governor of Oklahoma probably did the right thing in saying we're not going to execute anybody. I don't know if 2 weeks is enough for anyone to decide if this violates the 8th Amendment. Jackie Bally, regardless, oh no, Mustafa, I think I'm starting with you. Jackie, okay. Regardless of what this person did to get executed, it's over the top, isn't it, to make them suffer for 45 minutes?
But it doesn't violate the 8th Amendment. What it does show is that the people who were administrating it or trying to administrate it may need additional training, may be incompetent. I think it's very good that the governor has decided to look into this and investigate. We'll find out what happens with the investigation. The few times that something like this has gotten to the Supreme Court, they have ruled in favor with the state. They've even said occasional mishaps do not violate the 8th Amendment. In times of execution, if it's in conjunction with the kind of crime that's been committed. This gentleman killed a 19-year-old and watched her being buried alive. So was there incompetence? Probably, and we'll find out more when the investigation happens. But does this mean that we're violating the 8th Amendment through executions? No.
What about that? Killed a 19-year-old, watched him get buried. Does it matter?
Well, it's not about him, it's about us, right? I mean, and the larger issue is, if you look at it, we have 2.4 million people in prisons in the United States. The city of Houston, male, everyone included, is 2.2 million. So we incarcerate more people in the United States than the population of our 4th largest city. 92% are black and brown. And in terms of you know, these executions, I mean, it's inhumane. I mean, one of the state representatives from the area said, you know, I wouldn't care if we fed them to the lions. That's not who we are. That's not the kind of community, the country, and city that we want to build.
All right, let me go to, I want to come back and talk about that again, but I want to go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Yeah, we were asking folks if this, changed their views on the death penalty at all, this boxed execution. David says, this is a problem in the state of Oklahoma. It's not our own problem. There is no humane way to kill a person, bring back the electric chair. It certainly didn't cost the inmate any money to kill anyone. You know, the president now, guys, has gotten involved in this and has called it deeply troubling, and he's asked the Attorney General Eric Holder to start investigating too.
Well, and this act in Oklahoma is going to cause every state to take a look at what they're doing, and may cause the federal government to get involved. But really, it's only the U.S. Supreme Court that can take a nationwide action, because I don't think the federal government has the authority to order the states not to execute people.
That's correct.
But, you know, Jackie Bally, the Bill of Rights was written to protect the individuals from an oppressive government. And specifically, the 8th Amendment was written to protect a defendant, not a victim.
One of the things, or one of the reasons why a lot of the states use the 3-step approach with the injection of the whatever they're putting into them to make them die. It's a three-step process, but it's supposed to be the most peaceful way to do something like this, or a less harmful way. So again, I agree with one of our viewers when he stated that this is a problem in Oklahoma. I think the governor did the right thing. They need to find out what's going on in Oklahoma, but the other states, I think we're perfectly fine, and we need to continue the way we are.
And what about that? Texas will not release the information now about what drug they're using. We use a single drug in Texas now. They won't release what drug it is, they won't where they got it, and they won't talk about their procedures.
We've talked about it in the show in the past, where these drugs are being mixed by pharmacists, local pharmacists, and we don't know exactly what's in it. There's no really control mechanism. We don't know their lethal capabilities, and we've had issues here in Texas that we've discussed. So this is not just something that's happening in Oklahoma. This is not something that's just happened once in a while. It's happened numerous times. And when I said earlier 92% of the population, I meant 92% of the people that are executed are black and Hispanic.
Well, if you committed a crime, as this gentleman did, he killed a 19-year-old and watched her die, then you're going to pay when you committed a crime.
But 92% of crimes are not committed by blacks and Hispanics. So if you commited a crime,
but
yes,
we're
you should
talking
pay the
about
price.
this one gentleman who's being
But we're
executed.
talking about a national issue.
Yeah, but they're not all being executed. The 92% that you're throwing out there, they're not being executed.
The 92% of people executed in this country are black and Hispanic. That's a fact.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Sally, we'll be back in the next hour with two really, really good topics.
All right, thanks for the debate, guys. We appreciate it.